Kids at school called her Big Sarah. She was not like the other kids. Many students wore fancy clothes and talked like they were rich. Sarah wore simple clothes and talked like what she was, a car fixer's daughter. Her dad worked hard in his dusty garage. He fixed cars to make sure they had food to eat. Sarah was fine being different, but other kids were not. They picked on her every day. The worst bully was Parker. He was the school star, rich, liked by all, and always looking to hurt others. Sarah became his main target. "Why are you even here?" Parker would yell at her while his friends laughed. "You don't belong in this school. You're just a poor car fixer's daughter. You don't fit in with us." Sarah felt sad but tried not to cry. She knew they didn't get her. They didn't know how hard her dad worked to send her to that school. He hoped she would have a better life. One day things got really bad. During lunch, as Sarah walked across the yard, Parker and his friends waited for her. She didn't know what was coming. Without warning, Parker grabbed a bucket of something that smelled bad and poured it all over Sarah. "This is what you get," he said, laughing with his friends. "You're nothing but a fat, poor girl who doesn't belong here." Sarah stood still, feeling the cold, gross mess soak into her clothes. Kids around her laughed and pointed. Sarah wanted to run away and never come back. But then she thought of her dad, who worked so hard every day to send her to this school. Sarah's face felt hot with tears, but she didn't cry. Instead, she lifted her head, and with all her strength she said, "I may be different, but I am strong. I am more than what you think of me. I don't need you to like me to be proud of who I am." Sarah, covered in the mess they threw at her, turned and walked away. When Sarah got home that day, she felt like a heavy weight was on her chest. She had kept her tears in until she reached the front door. As soon as she walked in, she couldn't hold them back. Tears ran down her face. Her dad, who was fixing a car in the garage, saw her right away. "Sarah, what's wrong?" he asked, his voice full of worry. Sarah wiped her eyes with the back of her hand and tried to talk, but the words got stuck. Finally, she said, "I don't want to go back to school, Dad. They picked on me again. Parker and his friends, they poured something on me. I don't belong there. I can't take it anymore." Her dad put down his tools and walked to her. His hands were warm and gentle as he held her face. "Sarah, my dear, I know it's hard. I know they treat you badly, and it hurts me to see you go through this. But you must not give up. You are strong and you are more than they can ever know." Sarah shook her head. "But they keep saying I don't belong. They keep making fun of me. I'm not like them, Dad. I will never be like them." Her dad smiled softly, though his eyes looked sad. "You don't have to be like them. You are special in your own way, and that is enough. Don't let their words hurt you. You are going to school because you need to learn, and no one can take that from you. They may try to hurt you with their words, but you must be stronger than them." Sarah sniffed, still not fully sure. "What if it doesn't get better? What if they keep picking on me?" "Then we'll fight back," her dad said firmly. "Not with fists or anger, but with your strength. And if they keep doing it, you tell someone who can help you. Don't stay quiet, Sarah. You have a voice, and it matters." Sarah felt better after her dad's words, but she still wasn't sure if she could go back to school the next day. She was scared, but her dad's talk gave her the courage to at least try. "Okay, Dad, I'll go back. But I'll tell my teacher. I'll tell her what's been going on." Her dad nodded and gave her a warm hug. "Good, I'm proud of you. Always know you are my brave girl, and nothing can change that." The next morning, Sarah went to school with a heavy heart. She was still nervous, still scared of what might happen, but she knew she had to try. She walked slowly to her class, her hands shaking in her pockets. When she got to the door, she took a deep breath and walked in. As she came in, her teacher, Mrs. Thompson, was at her desk, grading papers. Sarah waited for a moment before she went up to her. "Excuse me, Mrs. Thompson," Sarah began, her voice quiet but firm. "I need to talk to you about something." Mrs. Thompson looked up from her papers with a blank face. "Yes, Sarah. What is it?" Sarah got her courage up, her heart beating fast. "Some students have been picking on me. Parker and his friends keep saying mean things, calling me names, and yesterday they poured something on me. They said I don't belong here because I'm not rich like them. I don't know what to do." Mrs. Thompson stared at her for a moment, her face giving nothing away. "Sarah, I'm sure it's just a mix-up. Maybe they were just joking. You know how teens can be." She went back to her papers without saying much more. Sarah felt her stomach drop. She had hoped for more help, but Mrs. Thompson seemed to brush her off. "But Mrs. Thompson, it wasn't a joke," Sarah said, trying to hold back more tears. "It really hurt. Please, you have to do something. It's not right." Mrs. Thompson sighed, clearly bothered. "Sarah, I'm very busy right now. Maybe you should try to ignore them. I'm sure it will pass. Just focus on your work and stay away from those boys." Sarah stood there, shocked and let down. She had hoped for help, but it seemed like Mrs. Thompson wasn't going to do anything. With a heavy heart, Sarah turned and walked out of the class. The next day, Sarah tried to keep her head down at school. She wanted to stay away from Parker and his friends, but Parker had other plans. He had a new way to shame her, and he wasn't going to stop until he did it. During lunch, Parker and his gang saw Sarah walking down the hall. She was holding her books close to her chest, trying not to be seen. But Parker smiled and said something to his friends. They laughed and followed him as he walked toward her. "Hey, Big Sarah," Parker shouted. His voice echoed down the hall and some students turned to look. Sarah froze. She didn't want trouble, but she could feel it coming. "Where are you running to, car fixer's daughter?" Parker sneered, stepping in front of her. His friends made a circle around them, blocking her path. Sarah didn't say anything. She just kept her eyes on the ground, hoping he'd leave her alone. "Not gonna talk, huh?" Parker teased. "Well, don't worry. I brought you a little gift." Sarah looked up just in time to see Parker holding a plastic bottle. Before she could move, he poured the liquid over her head. It was warm. It smelled awful. It was pee. The hall filled with gasps and laughs. Some students covered their mouths in shock while others giggled. Sarah stood there frozen as the liquid dripped down her hair and onto her clothes. She felt every stare, every laugh, like a knife cutting into her. Parker tossed the empty bottle on the floor and laughed. "Now you smell like where you belong, with the trash," he said, his voice full of mean joy. Sarah couldn't hold back her tears anymore. She turned and ran. She didn't know where she was going. She just needed to get away. Her heart felt like it was breaking, and the laughter in her ears made her want to hide. She found an empty corner near the cleaner's closet and slid to the floor. She hugged her knees to her chest and let the tears flow. She cried so hard, her whole body shook. "Why?" she whispered to herself. "Why do they hate me? Why do they treat me like this?" She thought of her dad, how he always told her to stay strong. But right now, she didn't feel strong. She felt small and worth nothing. As she sat there, lost in her sadness, she heard a soft voice. "Sarah." She looked up and saw Mrs. Carter, the school helper, standing there. Mrs. Carter had heard someone crying and came to see what was wrong. Her face was full of care. "What happened, Sarah?" Mrs. Carter asked gently, kneeling next to her. Sarah waited at first, but then everything came out. She told Mrs. Carter about Parker, the picking on, and how he had just poured pee on her. She told her how the teacher didn't believe her when she tried to tell her before. Mrs. Carter listened well, her face growing more serious with each word. When Sarah finished, Mrs. Carter put a hand on her shoulder. "Sarah, I am so sorry this happened to you. This is not okay. And you don't need this. You are not the problem, they are." Sarah sniffed, her voice shaking. "But no one cares. The teacher didn't care when I told her." "Well, I care," Mrs. Carter said firmly, "and I'm going to make sure this doesn't happen again." She helped Sarah to her feet and walked her to her office. Sarah felt shaky and ashamed, but Mrs. Carter's kindness gave her a small bit of hope. Once in the office, Mrs. Carter gave Sarah a towel to clean herself and a cup of water to drink. Then she picked up the phone. Sarah watched as Mrs. Carter called the head teacher. Her voice was calm but serious as she told him everything that happened. Sarah couldn't hear what the head teacher said, but Mrs. Carter nodded firmly. All at once, Mrs. Carter's face darkened as she listened to the head teacher on the other end of the phone. Sarah sat in the chair across from her, nervously wiping her tears with a tissue. She could see Mrs. Carter frowning, her grip getting tighter on the phone as the talk went on. "But sir," Mrs. Carter said firmly, "this is not okay. A student has been shamed." The head teacher's next words were slow and cold. "Tell her she can find another school if she's not happy here. Parker's dad has always backed this school. He is the reason we have new rooms and sports fields. He is the one who makes sure our plans get money. We cannot risk losing his help because of one girl crying about being picked on. Sarah doesn't belong here anyway, does she? Let her dad send her somewhere else." Mrs. Carter froze, her jaw tight. Sarah, who had been listening with worry, felt her heart sink to her stomach. Tears filled her eyes again, but this time they weren't just from sadness, they were from anger. Was her life really worth so little to these people? Did money mean more than her pain? "Sir, this isn't about money," Mrs. Carter said, her voice low and shaking with anger. "This is about doing what's right." The head teacher cut her off once more, his voice sharp and final. "Enough, I've made my choice. Drop it, Mrs. Carter. Tell her dad to find her a different school if he can't handle this one. Good day." Before Mrs. Carter could reply, the line went dead. The head teacher had hung up. For a moment, the office was quiet. Sarah sat there, her chest rising and falling as she tried to keep from breaking down. Mrs. Carter placed the phone back with a shaky hand. She looked at Sarah, her eyes filled with sadness and "I'm sorry." "Sarah," Mrs. Carter began, but Sarah didn't wait to hear the rest. She stood up fast, her chair making a loud noise against the floor. "So that's it," Sarah said, her voice shaking. "I'm supposed to just leave because I'm not rich enough to matter." "Sarah, please sit down," Mrs. Carter begged. "I didn't agree with him. I'm going to figure something out." Sarah shook her head, her tears falling freely now. "What's the point? No one cares. No one ever cared." Her voice broke and she ran out of the office, not stopping when Mrs. Carter called for her to come back. She didn't stop running until she was outside the school gates. The cold wind stung her cheeks, but she didn't care. She just needed to get away, to escape the weight pressing down on her chest. As she walked home, her mind was full of feelings. Anger, hurt, let down. How could the school, the very place meant to keep her safe, be so cold and mean? She thought of Parker's smile, his cruel laugh, and how untouchable he seemed. No one could stand up to him because of his dad's power and money. By the time she reached her house, Sarah was shaking, partly from the cold and partly from the storm inside her. She opened the door to find her dad working on an old car engine in their small garage. His hands were covered in grease and he was humming a soft tune, not knowing the pain his daughter was carrying. When he saw her, his smile faded. "Sarah, what happened?" he asked, wiping his hands on a rag. He could see the tears in her eyes, the way her shoulders slumped as if the weight of the world was on them. Sarah couldn't hold it in anymore. She fell into his arms, sobbing hard. "I can't go back, Dad," she cried. "I can't. They poured pee on me. They laughed at me. And the head teacher said, he said I don't belong there because I'm not rich like them." Her dad's arms tightened around her, his face getting hard as she spoke. He didn't stop her, letting her pour out everything. The picking on, the head teacher's words, the feeling of being worth nothing. When she finished, her dad took a deep breath. "Sarah," he said softly, pulling back to look into her tear-streaked face. "You're my daughter, you're strong, and no amount of money or power can take away your worth. I'm proud of you, and no one, not Parker, not his dad, not that head teacher, can change that." "But I can't do it, Dad," she whispered. "I can't face them anymore." Her dad's eyes filled with both pain and will. "You won't have to face them alone, Sarah. We're going to fight this. I don't know how yet, but I won't let them win." The next day at school, Sarah went to the library during lunch. She sat in a corner, trying to stay away from everyone. She felt sad and tired from all the picking on. She opened a book, but couldn't focus. As she sat quietly, Parker came into the library. He saw her sitting alone and walked straight to her. This time, he was alone. "Well, look who's here," Parker said with a mean smile as he sat across from her. Sarah didn't look up. She didn't want to talk to him. "You think you can hide in here?" Parker kept on. "You're such a loser, Big Sarah. Ugly, stupid, and poor. What's a car fixer's daughter doing in this school anyway? You don't belong here." Sarah clenched her fists under the table, but didn't say a word. She didn't want to give him the joy of seeing her upset. "Look at me when I'm talking to you," Parker yelled, slamming his hand on the table. Sarah jumped and slowly looked up at him. "I'm not going to stop, you know," Parker said, his eyes cold. "You're going to leave this school one way or another. You have to pay for what your sad dad did to my mom." Sarah stared at him, confused. "What are you talking about?" she asked, her voice shaking. Parker leaned back in his chair, folding his arms across his chest. "Oh, you don't know," he said with a cruel laugh. "You really don't know. Makes sense. Your dad's such a chicken, he didn't even tell you the truth." "Tell me what?" Sarah asked, her voice louder now. She was scared, but she needed answers. "What did my dad do to your mom?" Parker's mean smile went away, replaced by a look of pure hate. "Go and ask your useless, sad dad about a woman named Vivian," he hissed. "Ask him what he did to her. Then maybe you'll get why I hate you and why I will never stop until you're gone." Sarah's heart raced as Parker stood up, standing over her. He leaned down, his face inches from hers. "You're just as sad as he is," he said, his voice dripping with hate. "Go home and ask, you silly girl." With that, Parker turned and walked away, leaving Sarah frozen in her seat. The library was quiet again, but inside Sarah's head it felt like a storm was raging. Her mind was spinning. Who was Vivian? What could her dad have done to Parker's mom? Why hadn't he told her anything about this? Sarah's chest tightened as tears filled her eyes. She couldn't get why Parker hated her so much, and now he had dropped a bomb that made everything even more confusing. She grabbed her bag and left the library, unable to sit still any longer. The rest of the school day passed in a blur. Sarah couldn't focus in class, couldn't eat during lunch, couldn't think about anything other than Parker's words. By the time the final bell rang, she felt like she was carrying a mountain on her shoulders. When she got home, her dad was in the garage working on a car as usual. Sarah stood in the doorway, watching him for a moment. She didn't know how to bring it up, but she knew she had to. She needed answers. "Dad," she called softly. Her dad looked up and smiled, but his smile faded when he saw her face. "What's wrong, Sarah?" he asked, putting down his tools. Sarah waited, clutching her bag. "I need to ask you something," she said. "Of course, what is it?" her dad asked, wiping his hands. "Who is Vivian?" Sarah asked. "And what happened between you and Parker's mom?" Her dad froze, the color drained from his face, and he stared at her in shock. "Where did you hear that name?" he asked, his voice low. "Parker," Sarah said. "He said you did something to his mom. He said that's why he hates me." Her dad let out a deep sigh and looked down at the ground. He seemed to be looking for the right words to say. Sarah waited with worry, her heart beating fast. "Sarah," he began slowly, "Vivian was a woman I knew a long time ago. She liked me back then. She thought we would end up together, but I never felt the same way about her." Sarah blinked in surprise. "You didn't love her?" she asked. Her dad shook his head firmly. "No, Sarah, I didn't. I tried to make that clear to her, but she would not let go of the idea. I met your mom later, and I fell in love with her. We got married, and Vivian didn't take it well." Sarah tilted her head, confused. "She was angry because you married Mom." "Yes," her dad said with a small, bitter smile. "She felt like I let her down, but there was never anything between us. I tried to explain that, but she wouldn't listen. She hated me after that. I guess she told Parker about it, and now he's putting her anger on you." Sarah frowned. "So, Parker is picking on me because his mom liked you? That's so silly," she said. "They must be really dumb to think this is a good reason to treat me like this." Her dad gave her a sad look. "I know it doesn't make sense, Sarah, but some people hold on to anger for years, and they pass it on to their kids. Parker probably doesn't even fully get why he's doing this. He's just saying what his mom told him." Sarah sat down on an old chair in the corner of the garage, shaking her head in disbelief. "This is so unfair," she said. "Why should I suffer for something that happened before I was even born?" Her dad came closer and knelt in front of her, placing his hands gently on her shoulders. "Listen to me, Sarah," he said softly. "You need to stop worrying about Parker and his mom. Don't let their anger ruin your life. Look at you. You've been so stressed. You're getting thinner by the day. It's not good for you, my child." Sarah's eyes widened. "Thinner?" she asked. Yes, her dad said with worry, you're not eating right and you're always worrying. I can see it in your face, Sarah. You've been through so much, but you need to be strong. Don't let them win. Don't let them break you. Tears welled up in Sarah's eyes, but this time they weren't just tears of sadness. They were tears of relief and love for her dad, who always tried to keep her safe. The next day, Sarah walked into her class with her head held a little higher. Her dad's words from the night before echoed in her mind. Be strong, Sarah. Don't let them win. She tried to focus on her books, but her heart still felt heavy. She knew Parker wouldn't leave her alone. Sure enough, just as the bell rang for the first lesson, Parker walked into the class with his usual smug look. He saw Sarah sitting quietly in the corner and smiled. He walked straight up to her desk, his voice loud enough for everyone to hear. Well, well, look who we have here, he said mockingly, the poor daughter of a dumb car fixer. I'm sure you went home and asked your dad about Vivian. Now that you know the truth, what are you going to do? Cry some more? The class burst into soft laughter and Sarah felt her cheeks burn, but this time something inside her snapped. She had had enough. She wouldn't let him walk all over her anymore. Sarah stood up, her eyes blazing with will. You're right, Parker, she said loudly, her voice shaking with anger. I did ask my dad. And you know what he told me? He told me your mom is still holding on to a no from years ago. Do you know what that means? It means my dad is hot stuff. He's a real man, unlike your weak, dumb dad. The class fell silent, their mouths hanging open in shock. Parker's smirk went away right away. Sarah wasn't done. She stepped closer to him, her voice growing louder and more sure. You stand here calling my dad poor, but your sad mom hasn't let go of him for years. My dad said no to your mom, and it broke her. That's why she's still bitter, and now she's passing her anger onto you. The class erupted into laughter, but Sarah didn't stop. She pointed a finger at Parker, her words cutting through the air like a knife. You think you're hurting me, she shouted. No, Parker, you're only showing the whole class how sad your family really is. And since you love running home to tell your mom everything, go ahead and ask her one more thing. Ask her if the man you call your dad is really your real dad, or if she's still dreaming about mine. The class exploded with laughter. Some students banged their desks, while others clapped and whistled. Parker stood frozen, his face pale and his mouth slightly open. He had never thought Sarah would stand up to him, let alone shame him in front of everyone. Sarah stared at him, breathing hard, her fists clenched at her sides. You better leave me alone from now on, she said coldly, because if you don't, I'll make sure the whole school knows how sad you and your family really are. Parker's face turned red with shame and anger. He looked around the class, seeing the mocking smiles and hearing the loud laughter. Unable to handle the shame, he turned on his heel and stormed out of the class without saying a word. Sarah sat back down, her heart racing. The laughter and cheers of her classmates were still ringing in her ears, but she felt a strange sense of relief. For the first time, she had stood up for herself, and it felt good. As the noise in the class died down, a few students came over to her. That was amazing, Sarah, one of them said, grinning. I have never seen Parker look so ashamed. Yeah, you really put him in his place, another student added. Sarah managed a small smile. She wasn't sure if this was the end of Parker's picking on, but for now she felt a spark of trust in herself she hadn't felt in a long time. Parker stormed into his house, slamming the front door so hard that the sound echoed through the living room. His mom, Vivian, who was lounging on the couch with a glass of wine, jumped slightly and turned to face him. What is wrong with you? She asked, narrowing her eyes. Parker threw his school bag onto the floor and flopped onto the couch, his face red with anger. It's that stupid girl, Sarah, he shouted. Vivian raised an eyebrow, keen to know more. Sarah again. What did she do this time? She made fun of me in front of the whole class, Parker said, his voice shaking with anger. She called you dumb and said Dad might not even be my real dad. She said her dad said no to you, and that's why you're still bitter. Everyone laughed at me, Mum. She shamed me. Vivian's face darkened, her grip getting tighter around her glass. What? She hissed. How dare she, that sad girl and her awful dad, think they can talk about me like that? I will make sure they are sorry. They will pay for making fun of us. Parker leaned forward, his face pale with worry. "Mum, do you still love him?" he asked with doubt. Vivian froze for a moment, caught off guard by the question. Her eyes darted to Parker, then away. "Don't be silly," she snapped. "How can I love someone like that? That poor car fixer is nothing but a mistake from my past. Don't you ever ask me that again?" Parker swallowed hard, not sure if he believed her. "Then why are you so angry?" he asked with care. Vivian didn't answer. Instead, she got up and began pacing the room, her heels clicking against the marble floor. "Let's wait for your dad to come back," she said, more to herself than to Parker. "We'll handle this together. That girl and her sad dad will be sorry for crossing us. No one makes fun of this family and gets away with it." Parker frowned, still feeling uneasy. "Mum, what are you going to do?" Vivian turned to face him, her eyes cold and planning. "Don't worry about that, Parker," she said firmly. "Just focus on school. I'll make sure they pay for what they have done." Parker nodded slowly, but his mind was racing. He had never seen his mom this angry before. It scared him a little, but he also felt a twisted sense of joy. Sarah would finally get what she deserved, or so he thought. Meanwhile, Vivian picked up her phone and dialed a number. Her voice was calm but sharp as she spoke. "Hello? Yes, it's me. I need a favor." "No, not over the phone. Meet me at the usual place tomorrow night. This is important." She ended the call and turned back to Parker. "Go to your room," she ordered. "Jay will take care of everything." Parker's dad, Mr. Wilson, walked into the house after a long day. He barely glanced at his wife as he set down his things. "Wilson, we need to talk," Vivian said sharply, stepping in front of him. "What is it now, Vivian?" he asked, his tone tired. "It's about one poor girl, Sarah," she said. "She made fun of our family. She called me dumb, asked if you're even Parker's dad, and shamed him in front of the whole class. Something must be done." Mr. Wilson raised an eyebrow. What did Parker do to make her do that? Vivian's face twisted in disbelief. "Why do you always think Parker is at fault?" "Because I know your son," Mr. Wilson replied. "Parker doesn't back off easily. If that girl made fun of him, it's probably because he said something first." "Are you being serious right now?" Vivian shouted. "You are supposed to keep your family safe, but instead you're taking her side. You're weak, Wilson. That's why people like that car fixer think they can talk to us however they want." Mr. Wilson's face hardened. "Don't call me weak, Vivian. The truth is, Parker needs to focus on his studies instead of picking fights with people. If you don't teach him good behavior now, life will do it for him." "Don't blame me for how he acts," Vivian snapped. "If you were more of a man, Parker wouldn't feel like he has to stand up for this family all by himself." "Enough, Vivian," Mr. Wilson said. "This isn't about being a man. It's about being a parent. You let Parker do whatever he wants, and now look at the mess he's in. If he can't handle what comes next, that's on him." Vivian glared at him, her anger boiling over. "You're sad. You're just going to let them make fun of us like this." "I'm not letting anyone make fun of us," Mr. Wilson said coldly, "but I'm not going to waste my time on silly fights. Parker needs to stop acting like a spoiled brat and focus on what's important. If he doesn't, he will have no one to blame but himself." Mr. Wilson walked away without another word. Vivian clenched her fists, mad. Parker, who had been listening from the top of the stairs, came down slowly. "Mom, what do we do now?" Parker asked. Vivian turned to her son, her eyes filled with will. "Don't worry, Parker," she said. "If your dad won't keep this family safe, I will. That car fixer and his daughter will be sorry for ever crossing us." That night, under the cover of darkness, Vivian put her plan into motion. She called a group of rough boys she knew would do what she wanted for the right price. "I want you to send a message to that car fixer," she said coldly. "Burn his garage to the ground. Make sure there's nothing left for him to call his work." The boys nodded without doubt, eager to carry out her orders. As the moon lit their path, they crept toward the garage with cans of gas and matches in hand. In no time, flames covered the small building, licking at the night sky as the fire roared. Sarah's dad's tools, machines, and years of hard work were turned to ashes. By the time the fire was found, it was too late. Neighbors rushed to help, but there was little they could do. The once busy garage was now a pile of black rubble. Sarah's dad stood in shock, staring at the mess. His hands shook as he sank to his knees, tears streaming down his face. "Why, God?" he whispered. "Why did you make me only to make me suffer like this? What have I done to deserve this?" Sarah, who had come running at the news, found her dad crying amidst the ruins. She knelt beside him, her own tears falling freely. "Daddy, please don't say that," she said, trying to hold back her feelings. "We will get through this. God hasn't left us. He will send helpers our way." Her dad shook his head, his voice breaking. "Sarah, this garage was all I had. How will I feed you? How will we live? I've failed you as a dad." Sarah hugged him tightly. "No, Daddy, you haven't failed me. You have done your best, and I'm so proud of you. We will find a way, I promise. Don't give up." The next morning, Sarah sat on the edge of her bed, staring at the floor. She didn't want to go to school. After the fire at her dad's garage, leaving him alone felt too hard. What if something worse happened while she was gone? Her dad walked into her room and saw her still in her bedclothes. "Sarah, aren't you getting ready for school?" he asked softly. Sarah shook her head. "I can't, Daddy. I don't want to leave you alone. What if something else happens? I need to stay and help you." Her dad sat down beside her and placed a hand on her shoulder to comfort her. "Sarah, I know how you feel, but you staying home won't change what's happened. You need your learning. That's the one thing no one can take from you." "But Daddy," Sarah's voice broke, "the garage is gone. We have nothing. How can I go to school knowing everything we've worked for is gone?" Her dad sighed, his own heart heavy with the weight of their troubles. "Sarah, I won't let this beat us. I will find a way to rebuild, even if it takes time. But you're my hope, my pride. I need you to keep moving forward. That's how we'll get through this, together." Sarah wiped her tears and looked at her dad. His strength and love gave her a bit of courage. With doubt, she nodded. "Okay, Daddy, I'll go to school, but promise me you'll take care of yourself while I'm gone." "I promise," her dad said with a small smile. With a heavy heart, Sarah got ready for school. She dragged her feet all the way there, her mind still on her dad. At break time, she didn't join her classmates. Instead, she sat alone under a tree, her face buried in her knees. The laughter and talk of other students felt like noise in the background as she thought about the past few days. "Hi," a soft voice said, breaking her thoughts. Sarah looked up to see a boy she had never seen before. He was tall with kind eyes and a curious smile. "Can I sit here?" he asked, pointing to the ground beside her. Sarah waited but finally nodded. "My name's Michael, I'm new here," he said, sitting down. He looked at her for a moment. "You look really sad. Are you okay?" Sarah smiled, avoiding his eyes. "I'm fine," she said. Michael leaned back, not wanting to push her. "You know, sometimes talking about what's bothering you can help," he said. "But if you don't feel like sharing, that's okay too." Sarah looked at him, surprised by his patience. She wanted to tell him everything, the picking on, her dad's troubles, the burned-down garage. But she couldn't bring herself to open up to someone she had just met. "Thanks, but I'm not ready to talk about it," she said softly. Michael smiled. "That's all right. I get it. Can we still be friends, though?" Sarah waited, not sure if she could trust him, but there was something real about Michael that made her feel safe. "Okay," she said finally. "Great," Michael said, his face lighting up. "Friends it is. And as your new friend, I'm going to make sure you're not sitting alone during break anymore." Sarah couldn't help but smile a little. Michael's kindness felt like a small ray of sunshine in her dark world. Sarah was called to the head teacher's office later that day. She walked in, not sure of why she had been called. The head teacher, a stern-looking man with a frown etched deeply into his face, sat behind his desk. He waved for her to sit down. "Sarah," he began in a cold tone, "I've been hearing reports about some tension between you and Parker." Sarah blinked, confused. "Sir, he's the one causing the problems. The head teacher raised his hand to cut her off. "I don't want to hear excuses. Parker comes from a very big family. His dad is one of our school's main backers, and I can't afford to have drama affecting our good name." Sarah's heart sank. "But sir, he's the one picking on me. He poured pee on me, made fun of my dad, and—" The head teacher slammed his hand on the desk, making her quiet. "Enough. I'm warning you, Sarah. Stay away from Parker or risk being kicked out. This is your last warning." Tears welled up in Sarah's eyes. She stood up, her fists clenched. "You're punishing the wrong person. You're supposed to keep students like me safe, not take the side of a bully." The head teacher glared at her. "Leave my office," he said coldly. Sarah stormed out, her chest heaving with anger. She felt helpless, like the entire world was against her. She walked to her favorite tree in the schoolyard, the only place she could find a bit of peace. Sitting on the ground, she let her tears fall freely. Moments later, Michael showed up, his happy face replaced by worry. "Sarah, what happened?" "You look upset." Sarah wiped her tears quickly, but it was too late to hide them. "It's nothing," she said, her voice cracking. Michael sat down beside her, his eyes kind but pushing. "Come on, Sarah, I'm your friend. You can talk to me." After a long pause, Sarah sighed and told him everything. About Parker's picking on, the cruel words, the pea case, and now the head teacher's warning. By the time she finished, her voice was shaking with feeling. Michael's face darkened with anger. How dare he? That spoiled brat thinks he can get away with anything because of his dad. And the head teacher, what kind of chicken does nothing to keep his own students safe? "Please, Michael," Sarah said, her voice shaky. "Don't do anything. Parker's dad is a powerful man. I don't want you to get into trouble because of me." Michael turned to her. "Sarah, you don't need this. Nobody does. Someone needs to stand up to Parker, and if the head teacher won't, I will." "No," Sarah said firmly, grabbing his arm. "I've seen what Parker can do. Please just let it go. I don't want you to get hurt." Michael looked at her, his anger softening as he saw the fear in her eyes. After a long pause, he sighed. "All right, Sarah, I won't talk to him. But this isn't over. I will find another way to help you." Sarah felt a rush of thanks. "Thank you," she said quietly. Michael gave her a small smile. "You are stronger than you think, Sarah. Don't let anyone make you believe otherwise." The next day at school, Sarah was sitting quietly in the class, flipping through her notebook. She wasn't in the mood for trouble, but trouble found her anyway. Parker strolled in with his usual swagger, a nasty smile on his face. He stopped right in front of her desk and crossed his arms. "So I heard you've got yourself a new friend now. What was his name?" "Oh yeah, Michael, the poor ugly boy. Makes sense. You two are a perfect match, two nobodies trying to act like they matter." Sarah looked up at him, her heart pounding, but she refused to let him see her fear. Slowly she stood up and faced him. "Michael is better than you in every single way," she said. "He's smart, good-looking, kind, and God-fearing. Unlike you, he doesn't go around making other people feel small to hide his own fears." Parker's smile went away right away. His face twisted in anger, and the entire class went silent. All eyes were on them now. "You think you are brave, don't you?" Parker said. "You are nothing but the poor daughter of a worthless car fixer. I can ruin you and your stupid friend whenever I want." Sarah didn't back down. "You keep calling my dad worthless, but guess what? My dad is a better man than yours will ever be. At least he's not raising his son to be a bully." Parker's face turned red, his fists clenched so tightly that his knuckles went white. He took a step closer to Sarah. "You've gone too far this time. You'll be sorry for ever opening your big mouth." "Do your worst, Parker," Sarah shot back, "but just remember this. You'll never be as strong as me. You hide behind your dad's money, but I stand tall because I have something you don't. Courage." Parker's entire body shook with anger. For a second it looked like he was about to lash out, but instead he turned and stormed out of the class. A few minutes later, Michael walked into the class with a book in his hand. He glanced around and noticed that the room was unusually quiet. Everyone seemed tense. Worried, he walked straight to Sarah's desk. "What happened?" he asked, lowering his voice. Sarah let out a deep sigh and sank back into her chair. "Parker came to make fun of me again, but I stood up to him." Michael frowned. "What did he say?" Sarah waited but finally told him everything. Michael's face darkened as he listened. "That's enough," he said firmly. "This guy has gone too far. He needs to be stopped." "Michael, no," Sarah said quickly, grabbing his arm. "Please don't talk to him. His dad is powerful, and I don't want you to get in trouble because of me." Michael looked down at her hand on his arm and then back at her face. His fists relaxed, but the fire in his eyes didn't die down. "Fine," he said after a moment. I won't say anything. For now. But if he ever lays a hand on you or says something worse, I won't stay quiet. I promise you that. Sarah gave him a small smile, her eyes filled with thanks. Thank you, Michael. Michael nodded, but inside he was still angry. He couldn't stand the thought of someone hurting Sarah, and he silently vowed to keep her safe no matter what. Meanwhile, Sarah's dad walked down the road, deep in thought. He had been having a hard time for days after the fire destroyed his garage. His heart was heavy with worry. How would he rebuild? How would he take care of Sarah? The weight of his troubles seemed endless. As he walked, a man came up to him. The stranger looked tired and hungry, his clothes ragged. Excuse me, sir, the man said, his voice weak. I'm hungry. Could you spare a little money for food? Sarah's dad waited. He had just enough for himself and Sarah, but he couldn't ignore the man's plea. He looked into the stranger's eyes, and something about him seemed real. Slowly, he reached into his pocket and pulled out the last of his money, handing it to the man. Thank you, kind sir, the stranger said, his eyes gleaming with thanks. As Sarah's dad turned to leave, the man called out to him, Wait a moment, please. Sarah's dad stopped and turned around, surprised. What is it? The stranger smiled, and there was something strange about his face. I'm not as poor as you think, he said calmly. In fact, I'm not poor at all. I wanted to test you. Sarah's dad blinked, confused. Test me? The man nodded. Yes, I wanted to see if you had the kindness to help a stranger in need, and you did. I was watching. He paused as if weighing his next words carefully. Tell me, what troubles you? What weighs on your heart? Sarah's dad was taken by surprise. He hadn't expected a question like that. He thought for a moment, then sighed. My daughter Sarah. We're having a hard time. I had a small garage, but it was burned down, and now I don't know how I will rebuild it. I have no money left, no way to feed us right. The stranger listened well, his face thoughtful. Then, without saying another word, he reached into his jacket and pulled out an envelope. He handed it to Sarah's dad. Take this, the stranger said. It's for you, for your hard work and kindness. Sarah's dad stared at the envelope, not knowing what to think. He opened it slowly, and inside was a check for an amount that made his eyes widen in shock. It was more than enough to rebuild his garage. And then some. The check was for a huge sum of money, more than he could ever have dreamed. Is this real? Sarah's dad asked, his voice shaking. Why are you doing this? Who are you? The stranger smiled, but there was a sadness in his eyes. I'm just someone who believes in kindness. Think of this as my way of helping you. I don't need anything back. Just make sure you do good with this money. Sarah's dad could hardly believe it. He had been given a gift he never expected. Thank you, he whispered, full of thanks. Thank you so much. But what's your name? I need to know your name so I can thank you, right? The stranger simply shook his head. No need for that. Just remember the lesson. Kindness goes a long way. And when you do well, help someone else in need. Before Sarah's dad could say another word, the stranger turned and walked away. He disappeared down the street, leaving Sarah's dad standing there in awe, holding the check and seeing that sometimes life had ways of offering help when you needed it most. Full of feeling, Sarah's dad said to himself, God really does work in strange ways. He couldn't wait to tell Sarah what had happened. When Sarah's dad got home, he looked so happy that Sarah couldn't help but notice. She was sitting at the table, trying to finish her homework, but she stopped and stared at him. Papa, why are you smiling like that? She asked, curious. Her dad sat down beside her, still holding the check tightly in his hand. Sarah, you won't believe what happened today. Sarah put her pen down. What happened, Papa? Tell me. He began to explain everything. How he met the stranger, how he gave away his last money, and how the man gave him a check in return. Sarah's eyes grew wide with shock and joy. Papa, this money is enough to rebuild the garage and even more, she shouted, almost jumping out of her seat. Her dad smiled and nodded, tears in his eyes. Yes, my child, it's more than enough. God is truly good. Sarah hugged him tightly, her face lighting up with joy. I told you, Papa, being nice always pays off. You gave that man your last money, even when you had nothing. And see how God blessed you. Her dad hugged her back, his heart full. You're right, Sarah. Kindness always comes back to you, even when you least expect it. Sarah pulled away, a playful smile sneaking onto her face. But wait, Papa. What if that stranger was sent by someone we know? Her dad raised an eyebrow. What do you mean by that? Sarah leaned closer like she was telling a big secret. What if it was Parker's mom? Maybe she still likes you and wanted to help you secretly. Her dad's face turned serious and he shook his head quickly. Sarah, God forbid. Don't even say such a thing. That woman, never. I'd rather sleep on the street. Sarah burst into laughter, seeing how upset he got. Relax, Papa. I was only joking. Look at your face. Her dad sighed but couldn't help smiling a little. Sarah, you and your jokes will be the end of me one day. But let me tell you this. Your mum was my one and only love. Nobody, not even Parker's mom, could ever take her place. Sarah smiled, her heart full of pride. I know, Papa. Mama was the best. And now, with this money, we can rebuild the garage and move on. Her dad nodded. Yes, we can. But we still need to find out who burned down the garage. Whoever did this must pay for it. Sarah's smile faded as she thought about it. Do you think we will ever find out who it was? And what about the stranger? Do you think we will ever know who he really is? Her dad sighed. Only time will tell, Sarah. But for now, let's be grateful for this blessing. Dear viewers, what do you think will happen next? Will Sarah and her dad find out who the strange man is? And will they learn the truth about who burnt the garage? Share your thoughts in the comments. Don't forget to like, share, and follow the channel. Turn on alerts so you'll be the first to watch part 2. Thanks for watching and stay blessed.